Welcome to Inside the Honors College, where we believe that wisdom and virtue is found when we learn together. Join us as we take an inside look at a community dedicated to educating the next generation of disciples and scholars. I'm Ellie Overman.
And I'm Taina Estevez. And friends, when I say that this was a life-giving conversation, I mean that this was an absolutely life-giving conversation. I say it about 1,000 times in the episode itself, but everything Jasmine was saying was just speaking to me. I resonated with so much of what she was saying. She was smiling the entire time. So then I was smiling and laughing the entire time. And it was just such a blessing to get to sit and listen to her beautiful advice and voice, beautiful voice and advice. And she's just such a supportive, both listener and speaker. It was an absolute blessing getting to talk to her for sure.
Yeah, even just listening to her just now, it is so evident how God-centered she is. She's just an incredible human being and a really remarkable storyteller. So I'm really excited for you guys to get right into it.
Cool. Awesomeness, Jasmine. I am so excited to have you here with us. You are one of the ones I've been anticipating just so much from because I've just heard so much about you. Not to put any pressure, but you in our short conversation already are just such a beautiful person and a wonderful conversationalist. So I'm so excited to get to share you and your story with all of our beautiful listeners here. So
thank you.
Of course. Before we get into the nice, beautiful story part, I do want to start us off with a little icebreaker. And for you, since we have found out here that you love food and this part of your bonding is like sauerkraut with your mother and going out and eating with your family. So I have to ask you a food question. And if you were to be any food, what would that food be?
That is such a great question. I would be an apple. And why? Because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And I just want to bring health and joy. And I don't think I've ever met anyone that dislikes a good, crunchy, crispy apple. I honestly don't think I've ever met anyone. Yeah, so it's great to be a fruit that is universally loved and is universally healthy and inexpensive, and it's pretty.
No, I don't know why, but that answer feels like it came out of left field for me. Like I was expecting, I don't even know what fruit I was expecting, but that apple just feels so on brand. So this is working out beautifully. Perfect. Off to a great start, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, cool. Now that we have that beautiful appleness into the life that is Jasmine, can you please tell us a little bit about the pre-life to your honors college? Like how did you decide to join the honors college and kind of how did you hear about it? That kind of, introduction to your journey of 4 years here at APU.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very fortunate that I had a very smooth college journey. I just remember in high school, I had a desire to be surrounded by Christian communities since I had grown up in public schools all my life. And I loved the public school system. I loved it as a Christian. Most of my friends were non-Christians just because it was so amazing getting to share my testimonies with them. And it was amazing to see how some of them responded to the Lord in that way. But, I was ready to have Christian friends and I was ready to experience what Christian education would be like. Mm-hmm. So I knew that Azusa Pacific University was, one of the largest Christian universities in Southern California. And being that I was already living in Southern California at the time, I was like, why not? So I attended a preview weekend session as a senior with my best friend from high school. And that's when both of us decided, hey, we are going to go to APU together. And I did have another school that I was considering at the time, but I just asked the Lord to close the door on the school that I was not meant to go to. And that school did not accept me, but APU did. And I was so happy. I knew all along that I was meant to go to APU. So it wasn't a difficult decision for me. And APU also had a great communications program, and I knew that was what I wanted to study. And on top of that, when I received the invitation to apply to the inaugural Honors College class,
first years,
something about that something about that program really stood out to me. I really thank God for the opportunity to read great books with other amazing people and have the opportunity to discuss them in small groups and even have the opportunity to publish something as a senior. I love to write, and I was really blown away by the fact that the Honors College would give students a platform to write and publish something that was close to their hearts. So it was very much of I knew AP was the school for me from the very beginning. And truthfully, looking back, now that I've graduated almost 3 years later, it still would be the school that I would choose to go to. And it continues to impact me until this day.
That's such a great little like natural plug into APU out there. That's so interesting getting to hear like your own story and like how God plays a role in that. Thinking about my own narrative with APU, because I was also in a similar position of like having another school, like multiple schools that I was like, I want to go to, but I was like, I can't decide. Like, I'm just so indecisive with stuff like this that I was like, God, I need you to close doors. You know, like I need you to guide me with where I'm going. And I mean, if I'm being honest, going to a Christian university wasn't my top priority either. I was like, God, I need you to just like lead me. Like, where are we going here with this? So you're the first person actually who I've been talking to who's also had that similar like, God, close other doors, you know, not open all of it, which is beautiful. So you're speaking to me today, Jasmine. You're speaking to me.
I'm so glad. Isn't it so much easier? I think God knows, you know, when we're the indecisive sort.
Yes,
Like, I'm going to save you hours and hours of deliberation. And you're just going to have this one little nice sort of walk through.
Absolutely. It is so much easier. I could not have been more grateful for the way that turned out for myself, for sure. So then speaking to your actual like life while you were going through APU, how would you say that you've grown as a leader in the Honors College? Although if you do have other parts that kind of tied into your leadership, feel free to speak to them, but specifically about you and how you became a leader and grow through that in the Honors College. Could you speak to your experience there a bit?
What a great question. So I came into the Honors College full of myself. And what does that mean? It does not mean that I was full of gusto. I knew I was going to be a leader. I was full of myself and I was so self-conscious. And so when I looked at my Honors College peers, you know, so many of them, and I mean, all of them exuded such a unique confidence. And when I looked at them, I was like, wow, I'm not as smart as them. I'm not as confident as them. I'm not as funny as them. I really remember having slight anxiety when I would go into a colloquy because I felt like, I don't have anything to contribute that would be intellectual enough or funny enough or theological enough. And I was pretty quiet initially in my colloquies, despite the fact that I am a communication major and I love talking and I love meeting people. And I remember multiple professors in the Honors College calling that out in me, and they did it so graciously. They would say, Jasmine, you have a voice, you have something to say, and the things that you have to say are going to benefit someone in a way that you might not expect it to. So don't be so self-conscious. I mean, they didn't say don't be so self-conscious, but I knew that that's what they meant. And so that was my first experience with the Honors College, calling out the leader in me, calling out the voice in me that God had given to me, but had been suppressed by my fears. That was the first instance. And then the second instance was when I actually got hired on to be an Honors College admissions intern. And you know, it was so funny. I never thought that I would have the privilege of marketing the Honors College to future Honors College classes, but something in me had been so profoundly touched by my experience in the Honors College that I really felt like I just needed to share it with other students. And I felt that so many people look at the Honors College and think of it as it being merely a scholarly community, but it's so much more than that. It was the most empowering experience for me at APU. And so I wanted to share that with people. And so getting the platform to do that made me feel that I did have a place in the honors college, that I did have a voice, that I did have value. And of course, my value is apart from any role or any title, but I think it really helped. And then the final way was when I applied to be a residential advisor as a senior. I actually put it down in my application that I really wanted to be in the village or at Bowles, because I really wanted to work with upperclassmen. Why? Because I felt like it would be so much easier to live with juniors and seniors. I was like, they're not going to need me that much. I'm just going to be there when I'm on duty, and, you know, I won't have to do so much, and I'll get free housing. Famous last words, because they assigned me to the honors college freshman, and I freaked out. As excited as I was when I got my little acceptance letter saying that I would be an RA 2017 to 2018, I was like, I can't be an honors college freshman RA. That's way too much responsibility, first of all. Second of all, I was not the perfect honors college student by far. And if anything, freshman year was when, wow, I truthfully had so many failures. And I was like, I just don't think I'd be a great example of someone to look up to. But I remember the strategic director of the honors college at the time, which is Frank Clement. He told me, he's like, Jasmine, you have to take on this position. And I mean, when he said that, I was like, no. But inside me, the Lord was like, yeah, Jasmine, I'm calling you to this. There's no one else that I would want in this role but you. And I just couldn't grasp that, and I couldn't accept that initially. But after much prayer, just this excitement started bubbling forth, and I took it. And you know what? That was the most beautiful thing I could have ever done in all my 4 years there, because the women that I lived with, the honors college women, just reminded me so much of myself when I was a freshman. But to see how they overcame so many obstacles, you know, freshman year isn't easy, but they overcame obstacle upon obstacle. And the only role that I had was to just be there to pray for them and to be a friend. I realized that, you know what, true leadership is realizing that you won't have all the answers as a leader, and that's okay, because Christ is the true leader of any organization, any group, anything. And I'm just here to partner with Christ and to be a source of his love in that situation. And that's it. And so it ended up being so fun. It wasn't stressful like I had envisioned it to be. And I left the honors college, and I left APU with 26 amazing sisters that I'm still in touch with today. And and I realized that leadership is not a scary thing. It's not for the smart or the perfect person or student. Leadership is being called, and God has a leadership position for everyone. And I disqualified myself initially. I disqualified myself many times in the honors college because I compared myself constantly to people in the honors college that I thought were better than I was. And the Lord used people in the honors college namely honors college faculty and staff, to remind me that that God sees the leader in me even when I don't see it in myself. Oof. So, yeah.
Jasmine, you are taking me to church and speaking to my heart. I literally was just having this conversation. Like, someone had to have this exact same conversation with me today. I've been finding myself just like really low and like to be vulnerable here and like, I feel safe right here, but like feeling myself really low. Like, I don't think I can contribute, or what I am going to contribute isn't enough, like it's not up to par. It's not right, and it's just, beating myself down before I say something in colloquy. Also be like, oh, I know this is a dumb idea. Like, correct me if I'm always wrong, type things. Just like comments like that. Just like the little, exactly, like the little things here. And while you were talking about your RA experience, like I could find myself also being like, oh, I should definitely, stay with the upperclassmen. It'll be really low key, type that. And then like not feeling experienced enough or like capable enough to help the freshmen in the first years. Like you're speaking to me. And I think that's so important, especially as honors students who are wanting to like go through text, go through conversation that aren't, that aren't easy, like just in not easy conversation and not being the person to hold yourself back from that, I think is so important. So thank you so much for talking to that. I mean,
thank
you're speaking to me. I know that there has to be other people out there who are also feeling the same thing because this is just so applicable. So thank you. Not even done yet, but thank you.
You asked the right question.
I'm so glad. So then kind of bring us a little bit to like the alumni. You mentioned that you had like 26 sisters that you were also like with, so people in this community that you're keeping post-graduation now. As an alum, how do you envision the community of the Honors College and like the impact that it has in the future? How do you see the alumni supporting honors? How can you see the Honors College supporting alumni as well? How do you kind of see that dynamic playing out either in the future or how can it get better?
That's a great question. So many of my amazing Honors College colleagues and friends and classmates have actually gone on to really amazing careers. When I first started off in the Honors College, I kind of looked around at everyone and was like, wow, everyone's so intellectual. Everyone's probably going to go on to either graduate school or just doing something intellectual. And it's amazing to see that the Honors College alumni have gone into so many different industries. I have a friend who is in, we have teachers, we have people in the political realm, we have people in tech, and we have people in medicine. I mean, that's amazing. And I know that the Honors College alum, like myself, have such a heart to see the underclassmen and the people that are currently in the Honors College. We want them to know that they can access these industries as well. So I envision open streams of communication where Honors College students will contact people in their industry of interest and get career advice from us because we've been there, we've applied for the job, we know what it takes to perhaps get a job in that industry, and we want to help them with that. So that's on a practical level, and on a more personal level, I think, Taina, you are God's instrument of creating community and creating this bridge between our students and our alumni right now. I mean, the fact that we are having this heart-to-heart conversation between, I'm an alumna, you're a student. It's something that doesn't happen all the time, right? Because we don't have the opportunity to speak to students like this. But you're creating spaces for that. You're going to be creating future spaces for that. And for those who are tuning into the podcast, we get to experience that at a second degree, but it's still so meaningful. So I think this is amazing. I think this podcast is amazing. And I think that I don't have the answer for what more will happen beyond that, but this is already great.
No, that was a perfect answer. I can already see that. And I totally agree. I think it's been, as a student coming from mine, getting to talk to like you and like people I've talked to before has been an absolute pleasure, goodness, getting to soak in like your guys' experience, getting to talk to you about your narrative and how that can like look through mine. I mean, you've literally been speaking to me, Jasmine. Like, I don't even know what's happening outside. You're speaking to me.
I have one little idea. This would be a dream of mine.
I could talk to you forever at this point, Jasmine, but just kind of to bring us to a close here, if you're going to leave maybe like current students, prospective students, a word of advice.
Two things. Number one is never forget that being yourself is a gift. And when you bring the gift of being yourself into the honors college or into your workspace, you are literally inviting a piece of God into the community that you're entering. And God doesn't look like the perfect ideal person that you're idolizing in your mind. God looks like you. And what I mean by that is all of us, if we are believers in Jesus, and that's the basis of our community at APU in the Honors College, we literally carry God's Holy Spirit within us. And that spirit will manifest in different ways. And so, some of us, we have gifts that are different from the gifts of the people that are right next to us. But if we're going to try to look like someone else, we are actually depriving the community that we're in of the blessing that they would have had if we had just been who God called us to be. So that's my number one. And number two is to create space for joy. And I love talking about Sabbath when I was in the Honors College because it was a concept that I didn't understand. I didn't understand why Dr. Weeks really wanted us to take one day off a week. I thought, oh my goodness, he's just making life harder for all of us. But as the years went by, I realized, wow, if we're not making space for joy in our lives, which is what Sabbath to me is all about, making space for Jesus and the joy that he brings, then really what is the meaning of life? What's the meaning of getting a degree only to go on to a career where we're enslaved to our work and we're enslaved to an identity that's tied to our work? It's just meaningless. And so when we create space for joy every day, which, it does require crucifying the flesh sometimes, because sometimes we are so caught up in perfectionism, or we're so caught up in doing more, or we're so caught up in winning this rat race of life and competing with other people. Christ calls us to take up his cross and follow him. What does that mean? I used to think, oh, what Jesus means by that is I have to sell all my stuff and go be a missionary. And it's no, true life is laying down that insane part of my flesh that needs to have things my way, that needs to be perfect, and needs to be number one. And I lay that down and I say, you know what? The true meaning of life is to receive God's love and to pass his love on to myself and to others. Loving yourself is very important. Let us not forget that in the equation of life. And wow, when those things are in place, wow, that's when you will truly excel and you will truly be victorious in life. And I'm so glad that the Honors College has taught me that over the years. And it's amazing when you read books written by authors over the course of time, over the centuries. Doesn't matter if it's St. Augustine or if it's St. Teresa or if it's Dostoevsky. They're all going back to, where does the true essence of life lie? Where does it begin? And it really goes back to Christ and the abundant life that he has to give to us. And we just need to make more room for it and less room for all the other things that don't really matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have gotten so much joy and love and my cup is filled to the brim right now getting to talk to you, Jasmine. I could listen to you speak forever. So please come back to APU and speak to us.
Praise the Lord.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, Jasmine.
Come to Singapore.
Yes, absolutely.
I am opening the invitation. If anyone will come to Singapore, contact the Honors College for my contact information, or you can find me online. And I would love to bring you around, eat some good food. I promise you won't be only eating apples and some other great foods on this island. We are known as a food paradise. So I would love to, bring you guys around.
I will be taking you up on that offer when I make myself on that side of the world. Thank you, Jasmine.
Oh my goodness, that was just such a gift to listen to. I hope you guys had a pen and paper and wrote down her last little piece of advice there, because it was just so good. You've got to rewind if you missed it, because just brilliant and so wise. I'm so grateful to get to sit and learn from her. I think my favorite advice she gave was that, like, being you is a gift to the people around you, and that you don't have to become someone else. And I don't know, like I just grew up in a church where we kind of, there was a picture of the perfect Christian. And if you weren't this extroverted kind of, I don't know, Enneagram type 2, you know, do you know what I'm saying? Or like, even just like going to the mission field, she even talked about that. Like, then you weren't a good Christian. And so it's been really cool for me to reframe, like, no, God has a purpose for you, and like how you were created in God's image, and just this idea that becoming more human is becoming more divine. It was just so good. And I also loved her discussion about leadership and how you're not going to have all the answers. I think, and talking to mentors this semester and to tutors, I've learned that some of the wisest people in my life never give me the answers when I ask them to. They patiently sit with me, even if they do know the answer, and they kind of just ask questions and they come alongside me. And so I just think that reveals so much wisdom in Jasmine. And I also just loved God sees the leader in me when I can't see it in myself. And just, oh my word, it was just so good.
Agreed on all fronts, Ellie. I'm totally with you. And even on top of that, I think one of the cool things that she mentioned within this idea of, God seeing the leader in you when you don't see it in yourself, there's also like people, community around you that also can highlight and pinpoint the good things about you that you may just not acknowledge or think is there. Like a lot of the ideas that she's having on insecurity and how that can affect us in the way that we're just going through life here is just so important to think about, that there are people out there who really see all of these beautiful good things. I remember one of the things as a reader myself of just like fiction, one of the things that I loved was like thinking about, if we were fictional characters, there would be some fan out there that would love all of our like quirky little traits, because that's what would make us us. And I just think that that's right. I think that's so beautiful. And I mean, the key word here in her entire interview was definitely just beautiful and light and God, and so many great things. So thank you so much, Jasmine, for sharing your story and experience with us.
And thank you for taking an inside look at a community dedicated to educating the next generation of disciples and scholars. See you next time on Inside the Honors College.